There is a moment in every drama where the arrogant actor who believed they were untouchable stumbles in front of the entire audience. The spotlight they craved turns into a burning ray of exposure. The narcissist once mocked and strutted with an illusion of power, convinced they had secured permanent victory. They looked down from their self-made pedestal, believing they had buried their troubles beneath a mound of lies and deceit. But observe the scene now. Their carefully constructed world, built not on substance but on the hollow echo of their own voice, is not merely cracking. It is utterly collapsing. The very life they paraded as a triumph has become a public spectacle, a lesson for all to witness. The script has been flipped. The tables have turned. The life that was meant to be admired is now, for all the world to see, ridiculous. Before we begin this journey, it is a blessing to know from which part of the world you are watching and at what hour of the day God has guided you to this message. Truly, it is a joy to witness how the Lord gathers hearts from every corner of the earth, uniting them in one spirit and in one truth. The fall of the arrogant heart is never silent. It is a loud, resounding crash heard across every life they touched. When the narcissist walked into a room, they believed they carried an unshakable authority. Their words were cunning, their promises were false, and their entire presence was a calculated performance designed to convince others of their superiority. They sought to leverage every small success as a weapon, believing they could permanently secure their dominance over any soul who dared to stand in their light. They lived by a simple, dangerous doctrine: what they wanted, they deserved, and no principle of truth or justice could stand in their way. Yet, this belief is the first crack in their foundation. The Bible tells us in Proverbs chapter 16 verse 18, "Pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall." This is not a mere warning. It is a divine law governing the structure of the universe. Any structure built on the shifting sand of self-adoration will inevitably crumble. The narcissist built their entire empire on the foundation of pride, and that very foundation is what guarantees their humiliation. The world, which once mistook their arrogance for strength, now witnesses the truth. Their supposed power was nothing more than insecurity dressed in a loud suit. Consider the tragedy of a person who spends all their energy building an outward image while neglecting the inner soul. The narcissist poured their focus into reputation, applause, and temporary status. These things are fleeting vapor. They are like a beautiful house constructed on a single, faulty pillar. When the wind of truth blows, or when the current of justice flows, that single pillar of pride cannot bear the weight. The fall is swift and absolute. The downfall the narcissist experiences is not accidental. It is the direct consequence of the path they chose. Every boast, every slight, every calculated injury inflicted upon another soul becomes an ingredient in their own cup of shame. They plotted the humiliation of others, seeking to bury their victims beneath a wave of shame. But the truth is a boomerang. What is sent out must eventually return. The very act of attempting to diminish another only elevated the one they tried to crush, while simultaneously exposing their own fragile wickedness. Now, their so-called victories and fleeting moments of triumph serve only as ironic highlights in their current tragedy. The very family they wanted to boast before is confused. The crowds they wanted to impress are shifting uncomfortably, moving from admiration to outright ridicule. The stage they built for their grand performance of superiority has become the platform for their public exposure. This is the moment the tables are turned. not by human effort, but by the quiet, unstoppable force of heavenly justice. The word of the Lord says that what the enemy meant for evil, he will turn into good. The pain and struggle endured at the hands of this proud soul were intended to break you. Instead, those trials became the very thing that refined character and secured promotion. The narcissist's failure is not just a personal loss. It is a universal testimony that no counterfeit victory can stand against the genuine blessing of the Lord. Their life has become the cautionary tale they never wanted to tell. The joke is indeed on them, for they believed they were mocking the innocent, when in reality, they were mocking the very principles of truth that govern existence. Their arrogance did not grant them power. It condemned them to the one thing a narcissist cannot bear: public, unmistakable ridicule. This dramatic reversal is only the beginning of their shame. They have been exposed, yes, but the root of their downfall goes deeper than a simple loss of image. It is found in the one catastrophic error they made, an error so profound it guaranteed their destruction. They looked at a future blessing and claimed it before it arrived. They celebrated victory before the battle was even over. The weight of this premature celebration will crush them completely. The tragedy of the narcissist is not simply that they lose, but that they lose after they have already raised their hands in triumph. There is something truly pitiful about a soul who struts across the finish line when the starting gun has barely fired. This premature celebration is the second, deeper crack in their collapsing foundation, an error of spirit that seals their fate for public ridicule. They did not just stumble. They tripped over their own loud boast. They believed their schemes were perfect. They were certain their manipulation had secured the prize. They calculated every move, confident that their seat on the throne was permanent. Before any final verdict was rendered, before any blessing was truly established, they began to clap for themselves. They lifted their voice in self-congratulation, whispering in secret places, "I have won. I have escaped. I am better than the one I discarded." This boasting was not a sign of confidence. It was the desperate noise of a shaky heart trying to convince itself of a lie. God says in Proverbs chapter 27 verse 1, "Boast not thyself of tomorrow, for thou knowest not what a day may bring forth." The wisdom of this word exposes the narcissist's deepest flaw. Their arrogance denies the sovereignty of time and truth. They operate as though they are the authors of their own fate, able to decree their future and secure their victory through sheer force of will and wicked maneuvering. They ignore the reality that the final outcome rests outside their control. Their celebration was a defiance of the divine order, an attempt to bypass the necessary humility required for any true, lasting success. Think of the arrogance required to assume the judge's role. They looked at their own circumstances and declared themselves justified, victorious, and deserving of applause. They imagined the moment they could parade their perceived triumph before others, whispering scornfully, "Look at me. Look at my life now. See how wrong you were to doubt me." They dreamed of using this moment not for peaceful enjoyment, but to wound and mock the innocent soul they sought to oppress. Their celebration was poisonous because its very intention was malice. This is precisely why the so-called victory dissolved like smoke. A true, enduring blessing from heaven is often quiet, humbling, and rooted in genuine character. A counterfeit victory, based on self-exaltation, is always loud, flashy, and ultimately hollow. When the narcissist boasted, They revealed the wicked motives of their heart to the unseen world. They made it clear that their desire was not simply success, but success weaponized against another soul. The weight of their own arrogance then became the chain that dragged them down. They invested their entire identity into this premature win, leaving no room for correction, no margin for error, and certainly no space for the hand of heaven to intervene. When the expected breakthrough did not materialize, when the promised opportunity evaporated, the shock was compounded by the memory of their public boast. The louder the celebration, the more profound the silence of their defeat. The higher they lifted themselves up on their boastful pedestal, the further they had to fall when the time came. The people who heard their early boasts now remember them, and their current ridicule is laced with the memory of that former arrogance. Their downfall is not only a consequence of their actions, but also a direct fulfillment of the spiritual principle that exalting oneself leads inevitably to abasement. The Word of God tells us clearly, Luke chapter 14 verse 11, "For whosoever exalteth himself shall be abased, and he that humbleth himself shall be exalted." The narcissist exalted themselves with great noise, and the sound of their fall is equally loud and public. They failed not because they lacked opportunity, but because they lacked a righteous heart. Their striving was tainted by a desire to crush another, and that desire always repels true, lasting favor. This leads us to the heart of the matter. Their premature celebration was merely the outward expression of a much darker inner sickness. They did not want success to build a better life. They wanted success for a far more sinister purpose. They wanted it as ammunition. They wanted it as the perfect, undeniable weapon to use against the soul they could not control. This is the truly venomous core of their motivation, and understanding this unlocks the reason for their complete humiliation. The true nature of the narcissist's soul is laid bare in the purpose behind their pursuit of victory. Their desire was never truly for fulfillment or peace. It was for domination. They sought success not as a means to build a better life, but as ammunition, a perfect weapon to be wielded against the innocent soul they tried to humiliate and control. This malicious intent transformed the blessing they chased into a curse, and the very opportunity they grasped became a terrifying snare. Their worth, in their own estimation, was not measured by their achievements, but by whether they could prove themselves superior to the one they had discarded. Their happiness was conditional upon your perceived suffering. This is the insecurity dressed in arrogance, the fatal flaw that poisoned their every effort. They needed a public win to silence the private, gnawing doubt that lives perpetually within them. The Bible tells us plainly that the character of the harvest is determined by the nature of the seed. The Word of God says, Galatians chapter 6 verse 7, "Be not deceived. God is not mocked, for whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap." The narcissist sowed seeds of malice, competition, and domination. They sought to cultivate a blessing fueled by the poisonous intent to crush another. By this unbreakable spiritual law, their expected harvest could only be shame. The universe refused to yield a blessing designed to facilitate wicked aggression. Think of the irony. They wanted a shining moment, a breakthrough that would place them undeniably above you. They longed for that promotion, that opportunity, that acquisition, not for the joy of it, but for the dark pleasure of rubbing it in your face. Their success was never about ascent. It was always about making sure you stayed down. But the hand that orders all things will not allow its favor to be turned into a weapon of darkness. The blessing never came to pass precisely because of the motive behind the striving. The opportunity that seemed so close slipped through their fingers like dry sand. The so-called triumph vanished like smoke because its internal core was rotten with envy and pride. Instead of elevating them, the moment exposed them. Instead of being celebrated, they were exposed as being driven by a bitter, competitive spirit. The energy the narcissist expended was aimed externally, always focused on comparison and control. They were so intent on crafting a public persona of victory that they failed to realize they were walking straight into a trap of their own making. The stage they prepared for their glory became the exact spot of their ruin. The Bible warns specifically about the fate of those who plot harm against the innocent. The Bible tells us in the book of Psalms, Psalm chapter 7 verse 15, "He made a pit, and digged it, and is fallen into the ditch which he made." This image speaks directly to the narcissist's fate. They dug a pit, a malicious plan, a public humiliation intended entirely for you. They saw your struggle, and instead of offering grace, they prepared a snare. They plotted how to use their supposed victory to deepen your wound. They calculated their triumph to be your ultimate defeat. Yet, the law of justice dictates that the very trap they set must become their own capture. The success they pursued, the image they cherished, the authority they claimed, all of it became the very weight that broke their neck. The weapon they sharpened to cut you was turned back, becoming the edge that sliced through their mask of respectability. The triumph they paraded did not elevate them. It only served to highlight the spectacular, undeniable nature of their current disgrace. Their life is now a public lesson. No amount of human cunning can overturn the divine law of cause and effect. They sowed hostility, and they reaped public scorn. They sought to humiliate, and they received a far greater lasting humiliation. Their defeat is bitter precisely because it is self-inflicted. It is the result of their own poisoned striving, and this reversal is not merely symbolic. It has historical precedent. There is an ancient story, known throughout the scriptures, of a proud man who prepared a towering instrument of death for an innocent soul, only to find himself suspended from the very structure he erected. This tale serves as the ultimate chilling preview of the narcissistic downfall, a warning that the scaffold of shame is always built by the schemer themselves. There is a moment when the pattern of divine justice becomes so clear, so undeniable, that it serves as a lesson throughout the ages. This moment is the frightening irony of pride, the inescapable truth that the scaffold one prepares for the innocent eventually becomes the instrument of one's own demise. Consider the story of Haman, chronicled in the scriptures. He was a man of immense power, sitting in a position of authority second only to the king. He was rich, celebrated, and held in high esteem. Yet, all his glory meant absolutely nothing because of one man, Mordecai, who refused to bow. The refusal of the innocent soul to submit to the arrogant spirit is the greatest trigger for the narcissist. Haman could not endure this single slight. His pride demanded total, unquestioning submission. His anger was not satisfied with a quiet dismissal. It was a hunger for public, comprehensive vengeance. Haman, in his overwhelming arrogance, did not merely want Mordecai dead. He wanted to hang him high on a 50-cubit gallows, a towering structure visible to the entire kingdom. He wanted the spectacle of his enemy's defeat to be a public declaration of his own untouchable power. This desire mirrors the narcissist's core demand, not just to win, but to be seen winning. with the opposition visibly crushed. The irony began the very moment Haman constructed that towering instrument of death. He was so consumed by his wicked plot that he failed to notice the foundational truth. A vengeful act always carries the architect's name. The Bible, in the book of Esther, recounts the sudden, terrifying reversal. Due to a series of divinely ordered events, a sleepless king, a forgotten record, a forced public honor, Haman found himself in the impossible position of having to honor the very man he planned to execute. And in the end, the counsel he received, the gallows he built, the spectacle he craved were all turned upon him. The Bible states in the book of Esther, Esther chapter 7 verse 10, "So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king's wrath pacified." This reversal is the perfect picture of what happens when a spirit of pride and malice attempts to manipulate the destiny of a faithful soul. The narcissist, like Haman, spends their days building gallows. These are not always made of wood. Sometimes they are composed of malicious rumors, financial sabotage, calculated emotional cruelty, or intricate schemes designed to destroy a reputation. They build their happiness and their sense of worth upon the anticipation of the downfall they engineered for another, but the heavenly principle remains. The gallows are always claimed by the builder. The very structure of shame that the narcissist intended for you now stands ready with their name etched upon it. The lies they spread to ruin your standing have become the very fabric of the gossip that now unravels their own reputation. The financial pit they dug for your loss has become the quagmire of their own failure. What a frightening consequence of arrogance to expend so much energy on destruction, only to discover that the effort was self-directed. The narcissist built their joy on your imagined defeat, but the hand of justice intervened, proving that the victory they claimed was counterfeit and the defeat they engineered was ultimately their own. They believed they were untouchable, able to stand above the consequences of their actions. They confused their temporary earthly authority with true, lasting power. But true power is rooted in truth, and anything built on a lie must inevitably fall. The fall of the narcissist, like the fall of Haman, is not a quiet affair. It is a loud, public, and shocking event designed to demonstrate to every witnessing heart that no one can mock the principles of righteousness and escape the consequences. The internal collapse of their schemes is now giving way to the external, visible consequences. The structure they built has fallen, and now the mask they wore is being violently stripped away. This brings us to the moment they feared most, the culmination of their arrogance, the time when what has been hidden in the darkness is dragged into the glaring light. The public exposure they desperately tried to prevent is about to become their reality. There comes a decisive moment in the course of justice when the time for secrecy expires. The curtain that separates the performance from the reality is violently pulled back, and what was hidden in the darkness is dragged into the glaring, unyielding light. For the narcissist, this public exposure is not merely an inconvenience or a temporary setback. It is the ultimate, paralyzing fear made real. The destruction of the very oxygen they breathe. The life of the arrogant soul is built upon an immense, careful lie. Image is their currency. Reputation is their fragile throne. Control over the narrative is their crown. They invested every ounce of their energy not in substance, but in maintaining this polished, untouchable facade. They believed that if they could only control what others saw, they could control their own fate, escaping the consequences of their cold actions. But the spiritual principle of truth will not be mocked forever. God says, Luke chapter 12 verse 3, "Therefore whatsoever they have spoken in darkness shall be heard in the light, and that which they have spoken in the ear in closets shall be proclaimed upon the khanda," housetops. This is the prophecy that now unfolds. The cunning words, the false promises, the whispered slanders, all the careful machinery of their deceit are now made audible, visible, and unmistakable to the public eye. The life they built on arrogance is no longer admired. It has become a stage for ridicule, a tragic, farcical performance that everyone sees for the sham it truly is. The very applause they craved has been replaced. It is not the applause of admiration, but the sound of collective, scornful laughter. This is the frightening irony of pride. The higher they lifted themselves up on their pedestal, the harder and more public their fall must be when the restraint is removed. The narcissist who once whispered, "I am better, I am untouchable," now hears the echo of scorn from the very people whose validation they pursued with desperation. What makes this exposure so destructive for the arrogant heart? It is because they lose control. They can no longer manipulate the narrative. The truth has become its own defense. They are forced to watch, powerless, as their meticulously crafted persona splinters and shatters. Their supposed victories, their smug celebrations have turned to dust, and instead of respect, they are met with a gaze of pity and mockery from the very voices they tried to silence. This public moment is crucial because it serves as the vindication of the innocent soul who suffered their malice. Those who doubted you, who believed the lies the narcissist spread, who whispered behind your back, they are now seeing the truth unroll before their eyes. You never had to prove yourself. The truth has become its own proof. You never had to fight back with your own words. The unfolding drama of the narcissist's life has become the undeniable evidence. The exposure is an act of divine justice. The unseen hand declares to every watching heart, "I will not be mocked." The narcissist sowed manipulation and cruelty, and they now reap mockery, exposure, and shame. Their life is a laughingstock, not because the universe delights in cruelty, but because heaven insists that lies cannot ultimately triumph over truth. For the narcissist, the loss of image is a kind of death. They have lost their source of power. The mask, once their greatest tool, has slipped, and they are revealed as fragile, insecure, and utterly foolish. The whispered secrets have become public knowledge, and there is no possible way to retrieve the illusion. The moment their reputation dissolves, their existence, as they defined it, ends. The crowd that once enabled their pretense now stands back, shaking its head in collective disbelief. This moment of public revelation transforms their entire being. Their self-importance is gone. Their false authority has vanished. They are now faced with the most crushing consequence of all, the change in their outward identity. They cease to be perceived as powerful, and instead, they are now seen for what they are, a warning, a proverb of failure. They are stripped of their honor and dressed in something far heavier, a spiritual clothing that burns with shame. When the mask shatters and the facade of power falls away, the shift in the narcissist's spiritual identity is immediate and complete. The honor they pursued with such desperate intensity, the glory they believed was owed to them, is violently stripped away. In its place, they are dressed in a terrifying, heavy reality, the garment of shame. This is not a metaphor for a bad day or a simple setback. This is a profound, spiritual judgment where the outer reality reflects the rottenness of the inner soul. The narcissist lived to be admired, to receive the praise and recognition of others. They sought to be crowned with the laurels of success, believing their cunning had secured them a permanent seat among the honored. They demanded respect, not through righteous living, but through sheer force of arrogant will. But the principles of truth dictate that an empty soul cannot be permanently filled with false praise. The Bible reminds us of the fate reserved for those whose hearts harbor hatred and wickedness. The Bible says in the book of Job chapter 8, verse 22, "They that hate thee shall be clothed with shame, and the dwelling place of the wicked shall come to naught." Imagine this image. The enemy, who sought to clothe you in disgrace, now wears that shame as their own perpetual uniform. The narcissist, who once strutted with self-importance, now wears humiliation as a constant, heavy presence. Their so-called victories, their smug, premature celebrations, have disintegrated into dust. Instead of standing tall in glory, they are bent low under the weight of an irreversible disgrace, ridiculed by the very voices they once commanded. For the arrogant heart, this shame is worse than any material ruin. Their idol was always their image. Their God was always the external perception of their power. When that idol is shattered, when the image is publicly desecrated, the spirit is left with nothing. To lose money is temporary. To lose face is eternal in the mind of the narcissist. They realize in this crushing moment that the world now sees them not as a winner, but as a fool, a cautionary tale of arrogance punished. Their shame is universal because their lies were widely distributed. They tried to impress many, and now they are mocked by many. The exposure in Section 5 was the moment the truth came out. Section 6 is the resulting, indelible change in their status. They cannot lie their way out of this. They cannot manipulate this reality away. The truth is now etched into the collective memory of all who observe. Their disgrace is permanent because it is the fruit of their own enduring pride. This reversal proves an undeniable spiritual fact. The integrity of the innocent soul is defended by a power that transcends human manipulation. While the narcissist schemed for applause, the quiet, faithful soul was being prepared for promotion. The humiliation of the aggressor is always the silent vindication of the victim. The light of their exposure is a light that shines directly onto the righteousness of your steady, patient response. The very thing that should have humbled them, the clear evidence of their failure, instead fuels their deepest torment. Their shame is amplified by the one sound they cannot escape, the one sound that strips away the last remnants of their imagined power. It is the sound of collective laughter. This laughter is not harmless. It is a razor-sharp instrument that cuts the ego down to nothing, leaving them exposed and utterly powerless. It is this sound that drives them to their next, most predictable, and most foolish reaction. The greatest torment for the arrogant heart is not resistance, nor is it hatred. Hatred can still be incorporated into their narrative. It implies they are still powerful enough to be feared. The one sound they cannot endure, the one force that strips away the last remnants of their imagined authority, is the sound of laughter. This is not the sound of joy, but the cold, sharp noise of public derision. Laughter is the ultimate unmasking agent. It announces to the world that the one who seemed mighty has been exposed as foolish and weak. For the narcissist, nothing wounds deeper than to realize they have become the fool in the eyes of the crowd. The prophet writes of this relentless shame when God says, Jeremiah chapter 20 verse 7. I am in derision daily, every one mocketh me. What the prophet spoke in sorrow now becomes the bitter, inescapable testimony of the proud soul. They sought constant applause, but found only derision. They longed for recognition, but were clothed in ridicule. Every voice, every whisper, every shared smirk cuts deeper than any sword, because their fragile ego was never designed to withstand the cold reality of exposure. Picture the scene that unfolds around them. The very family they wanted to impress now shakes their heads in disbelief, their loyalty exhausted. The friends they boasted before now remind them of their colossal failure. The colleagues who once nodded along in quiet fear now exchange knowing glances, chuckling behind cupped hands. It is not merely a single person who laughs. It is a chorus of mockery rising up, and in that sound, the narcissist feels themselves shrinking. Their inflated pride deflates under the crushing weight of collective ridicule. Reputation, for the narcissist, is everything. They do not seek truth, they seek image. They do not pursue righteousness, they pursue recognition. When that carefully constructed image is shattered, when the mask slips and everyone sees the pathetic emptiness that lies beneath, they have nothing left to cling to. The very persona they worshipped has been desecrated before the crowd. The irony here is truly devastating. They sought to laugh at you. They longed to make your struggle their joke, to reduce the innocent soul to a story of failure and defeat. Yet it is they who now stumble beneath the weight of ridicule. It is they who carry the permanent label of disgrace. God has turned the ridicule back upon their own head, ensuring that the source of the laughter is the very one who initiated the scorn. The psalmist declares in Scripture the consequence of misplaced trust. Psalm chapter 52 verse 7. Lo, this is the man that made not God his strength, but trusted in the abundance of his riches, and strengthened himself in his wickedness. And what follows? His downfall becomes a warning. His shame becomes a proverb. His life transforms into a public lesson. The narcissist's story is no longer one of triumph, but of spectacular, self-inflicted failure. Their name, once spoken with admiration, now elicits smirks and head shaking. The laughter does not fade quickly. In fact, the more the narcissist tries to silence it, the louder it seems to echo. It follows them into gatherings, into conversations, and even into the quiet moments when they are alone. Pride cannot bear to be mocked. Pride can endure opposition, but laughter strips away the illusion of power, unmasks the pretender, and reduces the self-exalted spirit to a hollow shell. This crushing, collective ridicule is the final hammer blow. It separates the narcissist from the validation they require to survive. The constant, gnawing sound of derision destroys the only thing they ever truly held sacred, their image. They have lost more than status. They have lost the very object of their own worship. The idol they built to themselves has been thrown down, and the fragments lie scattered in the dust, paving the way for the most profound psychological and spiritual breakdown of their life. The ultimate tragedy of the arrogant soul is rooted in their worship of a false deity. Their religion is self-adoration, and their true, most cherished divinity is their own external image. The moment that image is exposed to the harsh light of truth, the public laughter becomes the hammer that signals the destruction of the idolized image, and their entire carefully constructed world dissolves into dust. For years, the narcissist sacrificed everything at the altar of this self-image. They sacrificed honesty, integrity, and the well-being of others. all for the sake of maintaining the illusion of perfection, power, and superiority. Their image was their strength, their defense, and the primary source of the validation they required to survive. To them, the applause of the crowd was divine sustenance, and reputation was the breath of life. When the mask is ripped away and the public sees the pathetic, wounded soul hiding underneath, the destruction is total. It is not just a loss of status. It is a spiritual implosion. The object of their worship has been defiled and broken, leaving them with nothing but the scattered fragments of pride. The silence that follows the laughter is the sound of their internal world shattering. The Bible provides a terrifying, timeless parallel in the life of King Nebuchadnezzar. He was a man of monumental power, but his heart was consumed by arrogance. The word of the Lord recounts the moment he stood overlooking his kingdom and boasted. Daniel chapter 4 verse 30. The king spake and said, "Is not this great Babylon, that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power and for the honor of my majesty?" In that very moment, while the boast was still on his lips, the hand of justice struck at the core of his pride. He was immediately humbled, driven from men, and made to live like a beast in the fields until he learned the necessary, brutal lesson that heaven rules in the kingdom of men and gives it to whomsoever he will. Likewise, the narcissist boasts of the empire they have built, the power they have amassed, and the glory they have seized by their own cunning. But the moment of their greatest self-exaltation is the moment of their most profound humiliation. They are struck at the very core of their pride, and the resulting shame is public, undeniable, and irreversible. The idol they worshipped is shattered, and they, like the king, are reduced to a state of internal madness, unable to function within the reality of their own exposed weakness. This destruction of their image is the profound reason for their instability. If their identity is their image, and their image is now ridicule, then who are they? The question is a psychic wound that they cannot answer with logic or reason. Their entire worldview, the belief system that declared them untouchable, special, and superior to the laws of morality, dissolves into nothingness. They find themselves standing in a spiritual vacuum, separated from the very thing that sustained them, which was the external admiration of others. This is the loneliness of the proud, to be surrounded by people, yet completely isolated by the wall of their own shame. The realization that their power was always an illusion, that their status was merely a performance, is a truth too heavy for their fragile ego to bear. The expected response to such crushing humiliation is humility and repentance. But the narcissistic spirit is incapable of this. It cannot bow. It cannot admit fault. When its idol is broken, the only recourse left is not self-reflection, but frantic outward defense. They cannot repair the broken image with calm reason, so they resort to the only tool left in their desolate arsenal: explosive, unpredictable anger. The death of the cherished image gives birth immediately to the childish, destructive rage of a soul that has lost the only thing it ever truly valued. When the idol of self-image is shattered and the public laughter begins to echo, the narcissist does not respond with quiet humility or a moment of reflection. The fragile ego, cracked and splintered by exposure, lashes out in a desperate, frantic display known as the childish rage. The adult facade, which they spent years constructing, collapses immediately, revealing the immature, wounded heart throwing a violent tantrum. This is the shocking regression that occurs when arrogance meets undeniable defeat. Pride is incapable of absorbing correction. It cannot receive rebuke. It certainly cannot process public humiliation. Instead, it reacts, and so the narcissist, exposed and mocked, rages in ways that confirm precisely how weak they truly are. They stomp and they sulk. They withdraw and they slam doors. They curse under their breath, perhaps even hiding themselves from the very people they once sought to impress. Because facing those condemning eyes is unbearable, the scriptures capture this condition, emphasizing that such fury leads only to restlessness and further confirmation of foolishness. The Bible tells us, Proverbs chapter 29 verse 9, "If a wise man contendeth with a foolish man, whether he rage or laugh, there is no rest." This paints a stark picture of the narcissist's soul. They are caught between a burning, internal rage and the public scornful laughter. There is no rest in them. Their inner world is a violent storm of wounded pride that refuses to die, a tempest that provides no comfort, only exhausting internal chaos. It is a pitiful sight. A person who once strutted with such authority, who seemed untouchable and commanded attention, now reduced to the behavior of a sulking child. They cannot handle the truth that the game is over, the mask has slipped, and their power is gone. But the tantrum does not restore their image. It destroys it further. The more they rage, the more foolish they look. The more they pout, the clearer it becomes that their strength was always an elaborate, hollow facade. This fury is not righteous anger born of a soul wronged. It is selfish anger, the roar of an ego refusing to submit to reality. They rage not because they have been genuinely wronged, but because they cannot bear to be seen as wrong. They rage not because truth has been twisted, but because truth has finally been revealed about them. Consider the biblical account of Cain in the book of Genesis. When his offering was not accepted and his brother Abel's was, Cain's countenance fell. His pride could not endure the humiliation of being outshined. Though God warned him clearly, asking, "Why art thou wroth? And why is thy countenance fallen?" Cain succumbed to the rage. His fragile, wounded ego turned immediately into violence. So it is with the narcissist. Shame births fury, and fury blinds them further to any path of redemption. What is the inevitable result of this childish, destructive rage? It immediately isolates them. Who can endure the company of a soul that cannot bear the truth? Who can remain close to a heart that responds to exposure with temper instead of quiet repentance? The spectacle of their tantrum drives others away, leaving them alone with their shattered pride. The very attention they craved slips further from their grasp, because no one respects a grown person who throws fits when they do not get their way. Here lies the deepest irony of their fury. Their attempt to silence the public laughter only multiplies it. The harder they rage, the louder the whispers become. The more they sulk and withdraw, the clearer their weakness becomes to the watching world. Pride cannot be patched with anger. The wounded ego cannot be repaired with a tantrum. Instead, the spectacle grows and their humiliation deepens, leading to the ultimate consequence of their unchecked fury, profound, desperate isolation. The childish rage of the narcissist leads inevitably to a consequence far more terrifying to them than any material loss: profound, suffocating isolation. Their anger, which was meant to frighten and command, instead acts as a powerful repellent, actively driving away the very people whose validation and attention they desperately need to survive. The one who lived to be seen and admired now finds themselves trapped in a self-made prison of loneliness. The entire fragile identity of the arrogant soul is built upon external affirmation. They require a steady stream of attention, the applause, the fear, the envy to patch the emptiness within. The tantrum of Section 9 was a desperate attempt to force this attention, to shock the crowd back into submission. But fury, when it is selfish and uncontrolled, repels connection. Instead of receiving the pity or submission they craved, they receive distance and avoidance. The wise man warns about the dangers of associating with a person ruled by their temper, confirming why the audience must retreat from the raging narcissist. The Bible says, Proverbs chapter 22, verse 24 and 25, "Make no friendship with an angry man, and with a furious man thou shalt not go, lest thou learn his ways, and get a snare to thy soul." This principle explains the mass exodus from the narcissist's life. People are guided to protect their own peace. They choose distance over the draining chaos of the furious soul. The narcissist's rage becomes their immediate undoing because it destroys their supply line of validation. Every slam of a door, every bitter curse, every moment of sulking confirms to those around them that this person is unstable, dangerous, and unworthy of emotional investment. In their arrogant refusal to accept correction, they are left entirely alone with the shame they tried to outrun. This isolation is their severest punishment. For a soul driven by external validation, to be deprived of witnesses is to be deprived of existence. They are forced into the terrible silence where the voice of their own conscience can finally be heard, a sound they have spent their entire life trying to drown out with noise and boasting. Yet, even in their loneliness, the destructive cycle continues. The narcissist cannot grasp that the isolation is born of wounded ego, a direct consequence of their own behavior. They will not reflect and say, "My pride drove them away." Instead, they will twist the narrative, blaming the family for abandoning them, blaming the friends for disloyalty, blaming the world for failing to understand their genius. This refusal to take responsibility seals their fate, ensuring that they will repeat the exact same pattern that led to their current ruin. They retreat to lick their wounds, but they find no healing there, only the echo of their own bitter self-pity. They are deprived of the external mirror necessary to maintain the mask, the very image they worshipped. Without an audience to perform for, the performance dies. Without an audience to lie to, the lies lose their power. They are confined to the truth of their own emptiness, a spiritual vacuum that offers no rest and no peace. The narcissist is now alone in their prison of rage, watching their enemies escape into the light. Their destruction is complete. Their image is shattered. Their audience has fled, and their false victory has been turned to ash. They are floundering in defeat, exhausting themselves in a furious, isolated tantrum that serves no purpose but to confirm their foolishness. But while the arrogant heart thrashes in this self-made storm, something entirely different is happening in the life of the innocent soul who suffered their malice. While the narcissist is loud, you are quiet. While they are raging, you are growing. While they are losing ground, you are gaining an immense, unshakable strength rooted in trust. This is the divine paradox. Your stillness is not weakness, but the source of your unshakable peace and ultimate victory. While the narcissist thrashes in the isolated storm of their childish rage, something remarkable and profound is taking place in the soul that suffered their malice. While their tantrums echo with the cries of a spoiled child, you are rising in the silent, immense strength of unshakable peace. This stillness is not weakness. It is a power rooted in absolute trust, and it is the only force that truly unsettles and defeats the arrogant spirit. The divine paradox is this: the greatest victories are often won when you choose to stand still. The narcissist wages a loud, exhausting war, demanding a reaction, demanding engagement in their chaos. But you are commanded to hold your peace, allowing a far greater hand to take the field of battle. The word of the Lord speaks this comforting truth in the book of Exodus. Exodus chapter 14 verse 14. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. This peace is an act of deep faith. It is the recognition that no human effort can rival the power of divine justice. Your silence is a profound spiritual choice that denies the narcissist the very supply they need: your fear, your anger, and your emotional energy. Your refusal to fight on their level is a victory in itself. This state of calm unsettles them more than any argument or fight ever could. The narcissist needs to pull you into their vortex of conflict to maintain their sense of power. Your stillness signifies that you are not defeated, nor are you even wounded by their current plight. Instead, your peace indicates that your eyes are fixed on a higher purpose, and a greater power is moving on your behalf, a power they cannot manipulate or control. While they are wasting their energy on resentment, bitterness, and self-pity, you are investing your energy into faith, obedience, and purpose. While they sulk, you grow. While their rage repels people, your peace attracts favor and draws stable, righteous relationships close to you. Their pride collapses under the slightest pressure, but your humility is being crowned with an enduring, stable strength. Think of the story of David standing before Goliath. The giant raged, mocked, and roared with a terrifying noise, demanding battle on his terms. David, armed not with heavy armor or loud boasts, but with quiet faith and a simple stone, stood still. When the stone flew, the silence of David's trust utterly defeated the noise of Goliath's arrogance. The narcissist is the giant, raging at shadows, but the faithful soul is David, steady in the Lord, armed not with noise, but with an immense, quiet certainty. This victory that you experience is not measured in material gains alone. It is measured in the peace that cannot be shaken, the joy that cannot be stolen, and a footing so secure that the storm cannot move you. Your quiet victory is the undeniable evidence that you are connected to a source of strength that the narcissist cannot touch. They lost their footing because their foundation was pride. You walk steadily because your steps are ordered by a higher purpose. The depth of your peace is the final insult to the narcissist's pride. They desperately wanted to believe that they had broken you, that your life was defined by the pain they inflicted. Your stillness proves them fundamentally wrong. Your resilience is a constant, living refutation of their entire narrative. They expected collapse. They are witnessing strength. This means you never had to enter the competition they created. They tried to measure themselves against you, demanding you engage in their petty rivalry, but you were running an entirely different race. You did not compete, yet you won. You did not fight, yet you triumphed. This is the heart of divine justice, and it is the next critical realization on your journey toward complete vindication. The final, magnificent truth that emerges from the wreckage of the narcissist's life is the complete realization of the triumph of the different race. You were never truly competing with them. You were never running on the same track. They were engaged in a desperate sprint of the flesh, fueled by pride and malice, while you were quietly running a marathon of the spirit, powered by faith and endurance. The narcissist set up the competition to be judged by human metrics, status, wealth, and temporary appearance. They defined victory as the moment they could look down upon you. They sought to force you onto their track, the track of comparison, conflict, and chaos. Your greatest victory, secured in the quiet confidence of your heart, was simply refusing to cross the line into their foolish rivalry. Theirs was a race of noise and speed, a race designed to impress and destroy. Your race was marked by patience, peace, and an unwavering belief in a justice that operates outside the limits of human cunning. They celebrated their start as a finish line, boasting prematurely of a victory they believed their wickedness had earned. You, however, understood that the true finish line is only reached when the integrity of the soul remains intact, regardless of the temporary turbulence. Now, as the narcissist's life collapses into ridicule, rage, and profound isolation, you are granted the unparalleled view from a position of security. The word of the Lord promises this exact moment of vindication and stable footing. Psalm chapter 37, verse 34. Wait on the Lord, and keep his way, and he shall exalt thee to inherit the land. When the wicked are cut off, thou shalt see it. You kept the way of peace. You waited in faith. You refused to let their malice corrupt your spirit. And now you are exalted not through human effort, but by the quiet hand that orders all things. The ridiculousness of the narcissist life is a testament to the undeniable principle that a soul built on pride cannot stand. Their entire journey was a foolish detour, a waste of energy that culminated not in a throne, but in a public spectacle of disgrace. The joke is tragically completely on them. They believed they were the powerful protagonist, weaving a destiny of superiority. In reality, they were merely the arrogant foil, whose fall was necessary to illuminate the strength of truth and the certainty of justice. They laughed at your quiet struggle, failing to see that your apparent delay was actually the time required for your character to be refined and for their gallows to be fully constructed. Your victory is the security you feel now. It is the freedom from their control. It is the peace that remains unshaken even while the storm rages in their own backyard. The judgment on the arrogant soul has been delivered. Their arrogance became a laughingstock. Their premature celebration guaranteed their defeat. The weapon they coveted became their own snare. Their image was shattered by public derision, and their fury left them alone and powerless. Let the sight of their ridiculous state be the final, undeniable confirmation that the path of integrity is always the path of ultimate triumph. May the peace that transcends all understanding be your constant companion as you step fully into the vindication that has been secured on your behalf. Go forward with a confidence that is not arrogant, but a certainty rooted in the enduring truth that you were protected, you were defended, and you have, indeed, won the only race that truly matters. In every drama of justice, there is a predestined point of intersection where two parallel paths meet. One path has ascended arrogantly, built upon deceit and self-adulation. The other path has descended in patience, humility, and silent endurance. This point of convergence is the divine justice of the reversal, an event where the universe declares that the moment the proud are cast down is the precise moment the humble are lifted up. This is the ultimate paradox. While the arrogant soul strives mightily to be seen and honored, that very self-adoration becomes the gravity that pulls them down. Conversely, the humble soul seeks no human honor, and that very release from the need for affirmation allows them to become light, ready for elevation. The downfall of the arrogant spirit and the ascent of the humble heart is a simultaneous action, not coincidence, but the very mechanism of truth. The arrogant one mistakenly believed they could hold the faithful soul captive with the sheer weight of their lies and manipulation. Yet, every effort they expended to maintain that control became a counter-pressure that launched the humble upward. The oppression they delivered did not crush. It tempered the resolve and fortified the foundation of faith. And now, the moment their control shatters, the faithful soul is simultaneously freed and promoted. The Holy Word teaches a clear spiritual law, ensuring the elevation reserved for those who choose the path of humility in the face of trial. The book of James tells us that, James chapter 4 verse 10, "Humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord, and he shall lift you up." This is not a mere suggestion. It is a sure promise. The abasement of the proud is not due to the efforts of the humble, but is the natural consequence of their own self-exaltation. The promotion of the humble is likewise not the result of frantic striving. It is the gift bestowed upon the soul that was willing to bow before a higher power and wait upon the Lord's intervention. Observe the contrast between the two conditions. The arrogant soul is sinking into personal shame, every false joy and counterfeit achievement reversed, becoming a spectacle of ridicule. Meanwhile, the humble soul is experiencing a renewed stability, a peace that no threat can disturb. This peace is not passivity. It is evidence that the battle has been turned over to a power that cannot be defeated. The arrogant one blinded themselves to the truth, that the very energy they used to plot the harm of another was creating the strongest counterforce against themselves. Their fall is public, tragic, and utterly ridiculous because it is intended to serve as a warning to all that no one can attempt to extinguish the light of truth without consequence. Their life becomes a living example of self-inflicted ruin. In the meantime, the life of the faithful soul is transforming into a testimony of restoration and grace. This elevation is not temporary. It is permanent because it is not based on human approval or chance. It is founded upon the immovable truth of divine principle. The faithful soul is lifted out of the pit the enemy dug, and in this ascent receives more than what was lost. Divine justice is never mere replacement. It is multiplication of what was stolen, an enduring blessing secured for the patient spirit. This moment of reversal is the guarantee that the kentu, suffering endured, was never meaningless. It was the necessary precursor to the promotion. The silence of the humble heart was simply the quiet waiting period before the sound of the ultimate triumphant restoration. The narcissist's foolishness now serves as the permanent backdrop against which the glory of your secured favor shines forth. The time has come to shift the gaze entirely away from the collapsing life of the arrogant soul and focus on the quiet miracle unfolding in your own destiny. We move from the spectacle of their shame to the profound reality of the promise secured for the enduring spirit. This is the chapter of double portion, a phase of life where the hand that restores does not merely replace what was lost, but multiplies it into an abundance that secures a permanent blessing. The spirit of the proud sought to strip the faithful soul bare, leaving them exposed and impoverished. The intent was to ensure that the loss was total, the shame irreparable, and the struggle perpetual. But the laws of justice dictate that for every season of unjust suffering, there is a promised multiplication of reward. The restoration promised is not a simple return to the starting point. It is a profound advancement that utilizes the very pain endured as fuel for elevation. The Holy Word speaks clearly of this divine exchange, offering a magnificent comfort to those who have faced the indignity of scorn and malicious action. The prophet Isaiah proclaims the nature of this exchange. Isaiah chapter 61 verse 7, "For your shame they shall have double, and for confusion they shall rejoice in their portion. Therefore in their land they shall possess the double. Everlasting joy shall be unto them. The shame the enemy intended to permanently clothe you in has been exchanged for a double portion of joy and favor. The confusion they tried to sow in your life has been replaced by a clarity and peace that cannot be disturbed. This is the difference between human compensation and divine recompense. Human effort offers a meager replacement. Divine justice offers exceeding abundance. This double portion is inherently permanent, a stark contrast to the fleeting, counterfeit success that the narcissist desperately grasped at. Their victories were built on lies, ensuring they were temporary and doomed to shame. Your blessing is permanent because it was forged in the fire of patience and purified by the willingness to endure injustice without retaliating. It is rooted in a character that proved itself faithful, making the reward an indelible part of your spiritual heritage. The permanence of this chapter is your strongest defense. The arrogance of the past can no longer touch you because you are now operating under a different principle, the principle of abundance and stability. Your focus must be firmly fixed on this new reality. The purpose of witnessing the narcissist's shame has been fulfilled. It confirmed the truth of justice and secured your peace. Now the time for gazing upon their ruin is over. The life they live is a cautionary tale, but your life is a testament to victory. The double portion is manifested not only in material increase, but most powerfully in the spiritual blessings of unshakable peace and unadulterated freedom. These are the treasures the proud soul can never buy, manipulate, or possess. They lived in internal chaos even during their false triumphs. You now live in internal stability, even as the world around you shifts. They sought control and received isolation. You sought truth and received liberation. The abundance secured is a sign of complete separation from the chaos of the past. The chains have been broken, the lies have been silenced, and the pathway forward is clear. This permanent blessing is the ultimate, final word in the story of your vindication. It is the undeniable proof that the highest power defended the righteous cause, and that your freedom is the perpetual echo that no lie can triumph over truth. The journey through this remarkable reversal finds its powerful completion in the echo of divine vindication. The final judgment has been rendered, the sentence has been carried out, and the evidence is not found in the loudness of the enemy's rage, but in the unshakable peace of your own heart. Your freedom, your restored joy, and your secure future are the perpetual, undeniable proof that no lie, no matter how cunningly woven or how powerfully delivered, can ultimately triumph over truth. The arrogance of the narcissist sought to make a lasting statement of their superiority, their power, and their right to control. But the life they now lead, riddled with shame, isolated by rage, and mocked by the very public they sought to impress, serves as a silent confession of their lie. Their pathetic condition is the confirmation of their defeat. Your flourishing, purposeful life is the resounding echo that proclaims the victory of righteousness. The Word of God promises that the ultimate consequence of knowing the truth is profound, unbreakable liberation. The Gospel of John delivers this ultimate verdict. John chapter 8, verse 32. And they shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. The freedom you now possess is the most tangible proof of divine intervention. It is a freedom from their schemes, a freedom from their fear, and a freedom from the constant need to defend your own name. The truth, in revealing the emptiness of the narcissist, has simultaneously established the deep, eternal worth of the humble soul. You are free because the truth has not only been revealed, it has become the foundation upon which your new life is built. Consider the permanence of this final contrast. The narcissist has retreated into the prison of their wounded ego, forever tormented by the loss of their idolized image and the sound of public derision. Their judgment is self-inflicted and continuous. Your victory is eternal and self-sustaining. The double portion you have received of peace, stability, and joy cannot be taken away because it is not contingent upon their failure, but rooted in the unwavering faithfulness of a higher power. The ultimate ridiculousness of the narcissist's life is this: they spent all their energy trying to win a game that had no prize, while simultaneously ensuring that the only genuine victory, the freedom found in truth, was secured for the soul they tried to destroy. The joke is final, it is absolute, and it is permanent. Your final act of triumph is not to dwell on their downfall, but to walk forward, secure in the knowledge that your vindication is complete. Your purpose now shifts from enduring the trial to enjoying the double portion. You are no longer defined by the malice you faced, but by the magnificent grace that delivered you. Let the peace in your spirit be the final, undeniable word in this drama. May you step fully into the enduring victory of your freedom, carrying the quiet confidence that the ultimate battle has been won, and that the truth has secured your lasting liberty and joy. Your life is the living, powerful echo of divine justice fulfilled.